Before we knew everything about steam locomotives and how they work or don't work, people in the early days of railroading thought some pretty strange things. Locomotives were loud, hot, and shot off smoke and sparks like nothing had before. Derailments and boiler explosions left people feeling intimidated and nervous around them. It was said the introduction of railroads would make the stagecoach obsolete, animals would get sick, and pregnant women would miscarry. There were fears the human body couldn't withstand traveling at the high speed of 30 miles per hour. Coach compartments were described as prisons, causing passengers to fear what potential madman they might be locked up with for their trip. Were trains challenging the laws of nature and God? And oh, heaven forbid the idea of mixing genders and people of different social classes together in stations and coaches. What is this, the modern age? Ugh. Safe to say, people weren't too sure how to feel about trains. In the 1870s, within America's fast-growing cities, interurban railways were looking to move away from horsepower for their streetcars. Problem was, steam locomotives scared horses, and the world hadn't quite figured out electricity yet, so steam was the only option. So, in 1875, the Baldwin Locomotive Works and J.G. Brill Company built a new streetcar design, meant to keep horses at bay. This was the enclosed noiseless locomotive, more comically known as a steam dummy. The Porter Company marketed them as the noiseless steam street motor. Simply put, these were small locomotives encased in a streetcar body. It's essentially a steam tram. This concept was used on a variety of street railways prior to the 1870s, but the concept really picked up around this time. Some models were built as individual locomotives meant to pull a few passenger cars, while others could carry a few people in the locomotive. An exhaust chamber would dampen the engine's sound, and using anthracite coal or coke would reduce the smoke output. It was thought the shrouding and subdued engine sound and smoke would fool horses into thinking it was an ordinary, quiet, unpowered streetcar, therefore they wouldn't go nuts. Several interurban, commuter, and even Class 1 lines tried these boxy things out, with export models being shipped out to Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and Japan. The UK also tried it out on their own in the early 1900s. Their reasoning was to make locomotives in push-pull service match the coaches better, or to prevent passenger fears of seeing an explosive steam locomotive boiler sandwiched between their train. I guess it was out of sight, out of mind, because there was still an explosive boiler under that coach body. The experiment ended after a few years due to the shrouding making maintenance difficult. Were the American ones effective? According to reviews from a Baldwin locomotive catalog, they were. But these could very well be cherry-picked positive reviews. Results likely varied. Regardless, people realized it was the sounds of a steam locomotive that scared horses, and probably not their appearance. So who's the real dummy here? The little engines would continue running until being replaced by electric streetcars and diesel box cabs between the 1890s and 1930s. The Baltimore and Ohio and New York Central continued operating dummies until the 1940s, as per an old city ordinance requiring steam locomotives in the street to be shrouded. A person on horseback would lead and flag the train. After those were retired, the steam dummy pretty much faded into obscurity. In the present day, present time, there's a good lot of steam dummies or trams preserved today, some of them being operational. Steam dummies were certainly an interesting little experiment. They were definitely a product of their time, but nonetheless, still an interesting piece of railroad history. Thank you to my channel members. Special thanks to Evans HO&N Productions, Grand Canyon Studios, Tommy Rosini, and Mooter for subscribing to the Conductor tier. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video.